You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Ever since Brian Kelly got the LSU job, if you go back to his introductory press conference, he talked about recruiting the state of Louisiana. I asked him the question because he had had several notable recruiting wins over the years, most recently getting Logan Diggs from Rummel up to South Bend. And he talked about how he wanted to build his roster. Recruit the state, recruit and develop, supplement with the transfer portal. And he has been very consistent with that message, that approach, for as long as he has been the LSU coach. As a matter of fact, just a couple of months ago, again, remember, I just told you what Brian Kelly said 3 years ago. This was less than 3 months ago.
For me, I think the business plan has been all along to pull our base here in the state of Louisiana, develop the high school player, and then by doing so, you develop a relationship and a trust and an allegiance to the young man that's in your program. That doesn't mean you don't use the transfer portal. I think you've got to be strategic in it, and you've got to be in it when you need it.
The reason I bring this up today is I do a lot of interviews. I get to go on a lot of other people's shows and stations to talk about LSU, and I'm always humble when people ask. I even did an interview today on WJOX in Birmingham, and I've been asked so many times about the approach to roster building for Brian Kelly. And it came up recently again because of Brian Kelly's comments to Jacques Doucet, where he said, now sort of infamously, we're not going to buy a player. And though we talked about it here, where he gave a very thoughtful, context-laden 3.5-minute answer, but all anybody heard was that one line. But I get asked all the time about Brian Kelly's plan, which you just heard, to build the roster, which is recruit Louisiana, develop, and then supplement through the portal. And I don't know if that's going to work. It sounds good, but I don't know if it's going to work. We don't have a large enough sample yet. This will be a very telling year. But I thought of it today because ESPN put out its newcomer class ranking. So they ranked the schools with their newcomers, combining their recruiting class and their transfer. So basically a blended ranking, but really this is about the transfers that you're bringing, the new players that you're bringing into the roster. And LSU ranked 16th on this list. And I know the immediate reaction is probably to look at that and go, 16th. But I actually think this is a great reflection and validation of what Brian Kelly is trying to do. Let me explain. The number one team on this list is Texas. Now, Texas spending a lot of money in the portal, and they're trying to win now. The number two team on this list, Ohio State. Is it safe to say that Ryan Day has a little bit of a temperature on his seat, considering he hasn't beaten Michigan in 3 years, and Michigan just won a national title? And if Ohio State people hate anything more than them not winning, it's Michigan. It's watching Michigan win. So they got pressure. Number three is one we've talked about a lot here. Ole Miss is number 3 on the list. They are all in the portal this year. You see what I'm saying? Like, when you start to look at a theme here, Miami is 4. Yeah, Mario Cristobal trying to get it done now. Oregon, 5, moving into the Big Ten. A lot of pressure there. Bama, 6. Now, that's obvious because you lost your head coach in Nick Saban. You had this massive exodus, so you had to sign a ton of players coming in. Texas A&M, 7. Same thing. Fired your coach. Lost 30 players. Colorado, 8. Same thing. Massive exodus year after year. But you know what we're not talking about? We're not talking about consistently awesome teams. Bama has been, but it's an outlier now because of what happened with Nick Saban leaving. Do you understand? Like, who's the best program in college football the last half decade? Guys, who's the best program in college football of the last half decade? Best program.
Georgia?
Georgia. You know where Georgia is on this list? 12. Is anybody concerned about Georgia's roster? I'm not. You want to know why? Because they keep pumping out top-tier recruiting classes, and they supplement in the portal where they need to, which is exactly what Brian Kelly's talking about. So if I lay this out a bit more, and I hope this isn't too many numbers where it's lost in an auditory medium, but in 2022, Brian Kelly's first year, the transfer class was ranked third in the country. Third. They signed 15 players. Yeah, their transfer class was ranked high because they had 15 players in the portal they signed. Their high school class was 12th. Last year, 23, LSU's transfer class ranked 5th. They had 13 players they signed out of the portal. Their high school class was 6th. This year, LSU's transfer class this year is ranked 41st in the country. 41st. And you may look at that and go, man, 41st. Now, yes, you would have loved to have gotten Dominic Williams. You would have loved to have gotten Simeon Barrow, one of those starting caliber defensive linemen. But I got news for you. Even if you would have gotten one of those guys, you're going from 45th to 40th, 38th. You're still nowhere near the top. You had 8 commitments out of the portal. Your high school class was another top 10 class. You were 7th. So the point is, the fact that LSU on this list today was 16th, I think is actually really validating that Brian Kelly is implementing the plan he wants to implement, which is, I don't want to be first in the transfer portal rankings. Because if you're first in the transfer portal rankings, it means you have massive turnover of your roster. It means you're not doing the thing that's the core ethos of what you're doing, which is recruit Louisiana and develop. So, has he done that? He's recruited Louisiana. We've talked about it, about how you've seen this dramatic shift in 3 years to the number of players from this state that he is recruiting relative to other states. That is a giant difference from what it was the first year when you had double-digit states represented in LSU's first class under Brian Kelly that Brian Polian pulled in. I've talked about that sort of ad nauseum here. You've all heard me say it before. But when I look at what Brian Kelly is doing, he's very clearly succeeding in building the structure he wants. What I don't know is if it's going to work, if it's going to translate to wins. Look at the programs on this list that we're talking about today ahead of Georgia. Again, the incoming or newcomer class rankings. Programs ahead of Georgia. Cal, Louisville, Michigan State, Colorado. Do you see my point? I don't want to be Cal or Michigan State or Louisville or Colorado. I want to be Georgia. So what's Georgia doing? Recruiting at state, supplementing with the portal. By the way, something I am very fond of saying and have said for years here, LSU is one of 3 states. LSU is one of 3 programs, only 3 in the country, that have the advantage in the dirt. What I say when I mean that is this. You are the only Power 5 in a talent-rich state. The only Power 5 in a talent-rich state. There's plenty of talent-rich states. Florida's talent-rich. You got Florida, Florida State, Miami. You got poachers all over the place. Alabama's got a lot of talent. We got Alabama and Auburn. Texas has a ton of talent. We got Texas and Texas A&M and Texas Tech, and now SMU's a Power 5. Baylor, you get it. TCU. You're competing. At LSU, you don't have that competition. Will Campbell, if he wanted to, after last season, could have gone into the transfer portal, named his price, and somebody would have paid it. But he's effectively, quote-unquote, taking less to stay here because he wants to be an LSU Tiger. That is your advantage. The other two states that have that advantage outside of LSU at Louisiana, Georgia and Ohio State. With respect to Georgia Tech, they're not fishing in the same pool or playing the same game that Georgia is. That is a talent-rich state, and they are the only game in town. Same thing with Ohio State. So, how's Georgia done it? Get the best players in your state and then supplement in the portal and cherry pick nationally. If you're LSU and you can go get Bryce Underwood out of Michigan, of course you do it. But all the other programs that I mentioned that are at the top of that list, they are in desperate win-now mode. Texas is in desperate win-now mode coming into the SEC. Ohio State and Ryan Day has a lot of pressure because he's lost 3 years in a row to Michigan. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin knows this is it. Like, it is a full-on swing. So the question is that sustainable? I don't think it is. That doesn't feel like a sustainable model. You know what does feel sustainable? What Brian Kelly's doing, which is to say we are going to recruit and develop kids from our state and supplement with great players in the portal. Now, one way this could go is what we've seen the last 2 years. Walker Howard from Louisiana, 5-star quarterback, stayed a year, went in the portal. Lance Hurd, 5-star offensive lineman from Louisiana, was here a year, went in the portal. Lost both those guys to SEC schools, by the way. It could go that way. And you're always going to lose players. But can you maintain enough of them to develop and continue to build this program? Now, this is going to be a crucial year to speak to that. Before last season, Brian Kelly gave an interview when he was asked if his team was going to be a title contender going into year 2, and he said, usually it takes 3 years to implement my culture, to get things rolling. And everywhere he's been, year 3 is when they hit the kaboom. At Notre Dame, year 3 was when they went undefeated, played Alabama in the national championship in 2012. Year 3 at Cincinnati, they were in the Sugar Bowl. Like, that's what he did. Year 3 is generally when he sees that meteoric rise. Now, there's different variables now. There's NIL, there's portal, there's a 12-team playoff, so there's some variables we don't know. But if Brian Kelly's goal is recruit and develop, as he said, well, Jacobian Guillory's a 5th-year player. Develop him. Jalen Lee's a 5th-year player. Develop him. Greg Penn, develop him. Harold Perkins, 3rd year, develop him. We know he's a freak show on the edge. Can you make him an every down linebacker? That's development. Stamps and Toviano, freshman last year, what's their development like? Sage Ryan was a 5-star when he got here. He's back for another year, probably playing his more natural position. Have you developed him? Let's find out. If your goal is recruit and develop, I went through the numbers. They've recruited. The high school class rankings that BK's had, 12, 6, 7. You're there. You've brought your portal numbers down from 15 to 13 to 8 because you want to recruit and develop high school, supplement portal. You don't want to build through the portal. I get it. So you've done it. You're now in year 3. How have you developed this talent? That's the answer we'll get this year in a 3-year sample. And I think it'll be a huge telltale as to if this model is going to work or if you have to go the model of Ole Miss and Texas and the other teams at the top of that list that I mentioned where they're going into the portal and going ham on numbers and talent because that's how you win now. I don't think any of us know the answer yet. There's not a large enough sample size yet of portal NIL to know what the answer is. Brian Kelly's telling you how he's trying to do it. And that the list I saw today was an illustration, seeing LSU 16th in newcomer class rankings, that it's going exactly how he wants it to go. You don't want to be high on that list. That means you went ham in the portal. Louisville's ahead of LSU. Do you think LSU and Louisville are competing on the same level? Absolutely not. But when Louisville goes out there and signs 20 guys out of the portal, because of the volume, of course they're going to be higher on that list. It's going to be a fascinating year, not just this season losing Jaden Daniels and Mike Denbrock and Neighbors and Thomas and all the talent, but it's going to be a fascinating test case to see if the model Brian Kelly is trying to use will actually work and be sustainable. This list tells you he's building it. This is confirmation that what he's trying to build is working. Like, he's building it the way he wants. Can you win at the highest level with this model? We'll start to find out this year. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.